the big picture here for the conference is for me to set up the panel that we have later. I'm very excited about the Honest Conversation panel that we're going to have. And, yep, and Matthew and I were speaking in the office about using a few charts to do this. And I looked at Matthew and I said, a few charts. So looking at Matthew, he's right there. And I said, Matthew, I have 300. Matthew, wait. No, correction, I have 3,000. I mean, he's like, Dan, let's keep it at 3. So here we go. Let's get this done. Right direction. So let's start off with gross domestic product. This chart shows that in the past 5 years, GDP has either been essentially 0, barely above 0, or negative. If you take the average of the past 4 years, it is a negative number. That's the red line in the chart. So our standard broad measure of economic activity indicates that the county is either contracting or not growing. Next, some indicators of population. So there's sort of two different things here. The yellow bars are first. In May of this year, we got word from the Department of Finance, a state agency in Sacramento, that the Ventura County population contracted. This is the first time in the history of Ventura County that really matters. You know, we won't go back to Pangea, right? But it's the first time in the time that really matters that this has happened. It's quite striking and speaks to sort of the status of the county. The red line shows net domestic migration. This is an indicator that CERF has watched very carefully for all the geographies that we cover. We feel like it really points to underlying functioning of the economy because it's the net number of all families coming into the county from elsewhere in the nation balanced against all of those leaving. And it's been negative for something like 4 years now. So more people are leaving than coming to Ventura County. So that is a key indicator or a key driver of the overall population change, which turned negative last year. And what is this? It's telling us that households, businesses, individuals aren't staying, they're choosing to go somewhere else, to get married, to have a family, to start a business, all these things. So given these population indicators, given the previous slide, the economic indicators, a person might think that, well, home prices must be flat or negative, right? Home prices probably aren't going anywhere, right? The economy is not going anywhere, so what are home prices doing? Well, in the past time frame, about 4 or 5 years, they've actually been rising. So what's going on here is it's not so much that the economy is driving the home prices, it's the other way around, and the population. So what we have are home prices, median home prices of $600,000 or something like this, and it's too high. It's an affordability problem, and it doesn't just impact households, it impacts businesses. So with this, I now am very excited to segue to our next part of our conference, which is our Honest Conversation. Thank you.
Got that on? Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. We have joked for years that CERF should be sponsored by Jack Daniels because after you hear these numbers, you want to go get drunk. Good afternoon. My name is Tim Gallagher. Been on the CERF board here for a number of years. I think since the start. And, well, we thought about, we knew what these numbers looked like before we planned this conference. And we thought rather than depress everybody with these numbers, we thought, let's have an honest conversation about what we can do in our local county, in our local economy. So we hope to talk about that a little bit over the next 45 minutes or so. Dan has just given you some of the depressing news. The GDP has been flat. Our job growth, Matthew will tell us later, tends to be in the lower paying sectors, and some of the higher paying sectors are actually seeing declines. Housing and rent prices continue to climb. In fact, one of the reports I saw this week said there's a growing number of people in our county who are paying up to 50% of their income on housing costs. In spite of a recent spike in housing starts, we have not made up for an 8-year deficit in housing construction in the county, and now the state's bringing more intense pressure on our cities to start building. And the county's growing older, and with the exception of a couple of school districts, most of our school districts are getting smaller. But there is some good news out there. This little thing we passed called SOAR has actually kept our green belts green, and we still have a very beautiful area. There are a lot of really smart businesses growing in our county. One of them, the trade desk, Drew West, is here from there. In spite of some of the problems we've had with Amgen, we're seeing some growth in our biotech sector, particularly up in the Thousand Oaks area. And our community, particularly our philanthropic community, has done a great job in the last few years coming together to support this community after all the disasters that we've had. So we brought this group together to have an honest conversation about the failings and the successes of Ventura County. Our hope is that you're going to hear some perspectives from these people that maybe will have you driving out of here getting a Coke and not putting a Jack Daniels in there with it. None of these people have to be politically correct because none of them is running for office. Now, Penny does have 5 people who do run for office who are her bosses, so we'll give you a little quarter on that.
I'll be careful.
You be careful. So here are our guests, and here's why we invited them. You know Matthew. I don't need to introduce him again. Nick Deitch. Nick, being on the far left, does that fit you? I was a newspaper editor. No one ever said I was on the far right. So.
I'm a Demublican.
Nick has been involved in creating the vision for Ventura County for more than 20 years. He and the firm he co-founded with his partners, Main Street Architects, has been trying to build the county in a smart and exciting and very reasonable way. As we prep for this conversation, Nick gave me a one-sentence description on how he views where we are. A lot has changed in the past 20 years, but we're still in the driver's seat. I was glad to hear you say that. Penelope De Leon is the superintendent of the largest high school district in the county, the Oxnard Union High School District, which stretches from Port Hueneme through Oxnard into Camarillo. She'll show you in a minute how many students and faculty they have, or employees. It's one of the largest employers in the west end of the county and a great influencer. I've been working with Penny for the past 3 years, and for a long time I just introduced her as the Oprah Winfrey of school superintendents because, as you will see in a moment, she has enough enthusiasm for about 10 people. But lately I've been mixing Joe Clark in there with Oprah Winfrey. If you remember Joe Clark from Lean On Me, he's that very tough principal in New Jersey who brought his school around because as nice as she is, she also has great expectations for those kids. Drew West has a new title. As of November 1st, he's the general manager for academic partnerships at the trade desk. That's a very exciting thing we're going to ask him to talk about, and also speaks well toward our future. The trade desk has 1,200 employees worldwide. 200 of those are in Ventura, which makes it one of the larger employers in the city, and certainly the most talked about. For those of you who don't know what the trade desk does in layman's term, if you've got a lot of money to spend on internet advertising around the world and you want to reach specific audiences, you hand them a bundle of cash and say, buy advertising for me. Is that layman enough? Okay, good enough. Since Jeff Green and Dave Pickles co-founded this company in 2009, the growth has been phenomenal. It has a market cap of nearly $9 billion. So as I lay this out, here's how I see the roles and the expertise each of you bring. Nick, you're going to bring us a history of where we've been, a little bit of vision about where we're going. And Nick has a pretty interesting slideshow we'll put up in a minute to show you what could be happening in some parts of our county. Penny, you're dealing with the present, those young people you are preparing for the future. And I got to say something as David was talking. I'm on those campuses at OUHSD all the time. And you know what you were talking about, some of our stereotypes, these kids, they are the nicest kids. They're always asking me, can they help me? I guess I look lost, right? They're always asking me if they can help me. You go on these campuses, there's not a piece of trash on the ground. I mean, those kids are actually terrific. And Drew, you and the trade desk really represent the future. And I'm sure you're tired of being asked this, and we'll ask you later, but is the trade desk going to stay in Ventura, or are you going to desert us like Kinko's did? We'll ask you that. But Nick, let me start with you, okay? Ventura County's kind of stuck with a lot of potential, but the economy is going nowhere. Briefly overview, how did we get here, and why are we here?
I think we're all here because we love it. Yeah. It's an amazing place to live. I think for me, the main reason we are in the place that we're at the moment is because of fear. Because of the fear we're going to screw it up. Because of the fear we're going to, if we allow for the growth that it looks like we need, we will somehow blunder it royally and ruin the place. And I'm here to tell you that that does not have to happen.
But we've got an imbalance, Nick, of our jobs and our housing. Is there a way of solving that?
We need to build more housing, and we need to improve the quality of the jobs that we bring to this county.
Okay.
And we can do it. But again, it's the fear. And everybody who's involved in any kind of development knows that as soon as you put up a proposal for something, there are all kinds of reasons why people are saying that that's the wrong place. We really should build a park there.
It's going to create more traffic.
All of that, and
the usual suspects.
And we're still working in isolated pockets, communities. We're still living within political boundaries instead of looking at the place as a regional context and how we can work together as communities, as cities, as the county. And I think we're going to have to up the game here. And I think we're on the verge of some really wonderful times for this county, frankly.
All right, put a pin there. We'll come back to that then, okay? If you guys could put up the slides for the Oxnard Union High School District. Penny, I want you to, you got it?
Let me see if I can click
Okay.
through it.
It's right there.
It's probably, sorry about that.
That's okay. So Penny, you've got how many students?
I have 912 students. I have 16,674 students that are 912 and about 2,000 adult education students.
That number, the homeless students, can you talk a little bit more about that? Who's in that group?
So this might look a little surprising to people.
I think it does. Are you guys surprised by that number?
If we're going to talk about the cost of living in Ventura, I have, I think, an interesting perspective because I see it from the student perspective, and I get to see it as an employer and how difficult it is to hire as an employer. But from the student perspective, 2,468, that is a full 15% of our students are considered homeless. And that means they either have no place to sleep at night, many of them in missions and cars, or it means that they're living in somebody else's residence.
Okay.
Many of our students will live in a small apartment or condo with 3 other families. When we go to do home checks, we often find students in converted garages that have no heat, no air, no water. So that number's been increasing exponentially year to year. I think another important number there that people don't realize the level of poverty sometimes that exists in Ventura County.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that possibly I'm here today is that our district is a bit of a microcosm for the county, right?
Right.
Within my one district, I have about 28% of my students that live in affluence or upper middle class affluence, and I have over 70%, around 72%, that live in high poverty that are considered low income. And you can look at those numbers there. Last year, we served 2,400,000 meals, breakfast, lunch, and supper, because our students go home to no food. That's to over 12,000 students district-wide. So I have both in my district, and it's a challenge to figure out how we serve. Listening to the presentation on the Latino DP, for me, that's huge. I have 77% of my students who are Latino post-millennials, and trying to serve them with poverty and homeless numbers in that range is it's challenging. It's
Show us
challenging.
the next slide too, which I think is also interesting because that
Yep.
talks about your staff.
So I think we're one of the larger employers
Yep.
in the county with about 1,500 staff members. Certificated staff are really staff members who have credentials and bachelor's degrees or above.
Okay.
And classified staff have less than that, but are often support staff like campus supervisors and paraeducators and whatnot. So the salary range for our 876 certificated staff is between $54,000 and $101,000. We are the highest. We have the highest salaries on the bottom end in the county, which is the end you want to be, the highest, because that's the end where you recruit people. And then if you look at our classified staff, that's their average salary.
Okay, so I want to ask Matthew to jump in here for a second. What's average median income in the county for a family of four, roughly?
Close to $90,000.
Okay, $90,000. When we talk about low-income housing in Ventura County, 80% of average median income, family of four, $72,000. There you are.
That's my staff.
So and you're the higher paid of the districts.
Yeah.
So the other districts are paying less than this. So most of our teachers fit into what is classified as low income for housing purposes. So when you hear the low income housing discussion in our county, I hope we've opened your eyes a little bit. We're talking about our teachers are fit into the low income housing category.
And can I also
Please.
add an important piece is you hear a lot, I think there's a lot of talk these days about the nationwide teacher shortage.
Yeah.
I just read this morning that we have 112,000 vacancies nationwide in the teaching ranks. It'll be up to 200,000 by the year 2025. I can tell you as Oxnard Union High School District as the highest salaries for incoming teachers, this is the first year where we have experienced that shortage and are unable to hire.
Is it housing, Penny?
For us, it's housing.
Okay.
And I'll tell, and part of it is that where we would normally recruit, places like the teaching programs at Cal State LA, Cal State Northridge, Long Beach, once they see the housing prices here, they don't come. We can't get them to come. I still have vacancies in special education as we speak, and we are in mid-November.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a dire, the housing is a huge piece for us. It's a dire situation.
So we're going to come back to Penny in a little bit because she is not a woe is me type of educator. She's going to talk to you in a little bit about what she expects from these kids and what the results have been over the last 4 years. But Drew, I want to get to you. What is it that you expect from the local education community, and how well are we delivering that as the trade desk looks to expand? First of all, do you want to talk about what your plans are in Ventura over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. We currently have 200 employees in the Ventura County area. Most of our operations are made up, this is our headquarters, so it's a lot of our operational HR, finance, those support organizations. We have 26 offices worldwide that we're supporting. Over the next couple of years, we anticipate that 200 employees is going to grow between 400 and 500 in Ventura. So there's an opportunity to create new jobs, but those new jobs are going to have demand for, those families are going to have a place to live.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a challenge that we see ahead. On an educational front, we're seeing opportunity. My new role within the educational space is to work with academia, both locally and globally, to prepare that next workforce. I was talking to you earlier about this Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, and there's a digital transformation taking place. We've all seen it. We've all heard about it. Self-driving cars, drones delivering wearables. It goes on. But the reality is, I think our academic institutions are struggling in some ways to keep up with the rate of change.
Okay.
And the trade desk is a rapidly, growing, very heavily tech and data-driven business. So we need a workforce that's coming out prepared to not stamp or punch buttons, but to solve problems and work with large-scale systems and data on a global scale across culture and geographic divides.
So not picking on anybody sitting on your right, but are public schools, colleges bringing you people who are prepared, or what should they be doing to change?
We've had great success with some of the local universities, and I hired 25 people alone out of California State University. We have courses running at Cal State right now with professors and curriculum. We have a course running at Cal Lutheran, working with Matt Cherry, who's an instructor out of Ventura School District, who they've done something really interesting, is they've compressed their algebra program into a separated Algebra 1 and 2 and replaced Algebra 2 with a data analytics program. And we're working with those students to bring them in and get them fired up around what's possible here. My vision is that we're building an opportunity for our children so that they can compete in that global digital economy. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're working hard at it. I would love to make an appeal that says we need education, we need business, and we need government to align very, very tightly to really drive this agenda forward in Ventura County. If we don't do that, what's going to happen is our children will suffer.
Yeah.
It won't be destitution, but it will be inequality, and we'll continue to see more and more inequality.
Okay.
And our children won't thrive, and we'll see more slides.
Like that. So alignment, that's where you started, Nick, right, in your conversation. Look, let me just point out something, since we're in an honest conversation, and I'm not running for anything, and neither are you. Public transportation becomes a big part of every conversation about how communities grow. But we've got half a dozen public transportation systems in the county right now. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
You try to take public transportation from one end of the county to the other, and you better take lunch and breakfast, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's going to take you that long. Why don't communities cooperate? What are the mechanisms that keep them from cooperating and making things better, Nick?
I talked to my students about this at Ventura College, 30% of which are homeless, by the way, at Ventura College.
And you teach
And
architecture.
I teach in the architecture program. And I talk about how we're masters. We have created beautiful cars. We love them. And we get in them and we close the door and we turn on the stereo system, and it really doesn't matter what we're driving through, because the car is just this delightful thing. And so we built our world around that. And we've created a world where we each need to take 2,000 pounds of metal and rubber wherever we go and have a place to put it when we get there.
Yeah.
And we've allowed that. And so transit is like, I don't, why bother? So the transit systems don't have the demand that they need in order to level up their service to make them the wonderful social experience they actually can be. And so we've ignored that.
So that's
aspect of
one
our lives.
aspect of it. But Nick, there are all sorts of examples that you and I have seen as longtime residents here where cities just absolutely refuse to cooperate. County government doesn't play a role in bringing people together. There's a lack of leadership there. What makes Ventura County so special?
I really don't have an answer for that, Tim, other than it's simply not a priority. It hasn't been a priority.
Okay. I would suggest maybe that the way we set up our taxing structures and the way cities receive tax, and also, we're not running for a re-election, so we could talk about Prop 13, which forces cities to shift the need for money to development and...
Yeah, but it is ultimately a demand-driven thing.
Yeah.
If people either want or need it, then there will, as that increases, then there will be a response.
Matthew, you see this too? I mean, why aren't we getting better cooperation? Why is there so much competition? And how's it hurt?
I think part of the game is that, Ventura County is seeing the results of attrition.
Okay.
This is one that my own family struggled with personally. I arrived here, some have heard this story before, I arrived here to open a commercial rock climbing school in 2000. Arrived in Outside Magazine's dream town, Ventura, California, right? And married a woman who was an outdoors person, outdoor enthusiast, and we thought we'd live here forever. And as a small business owner, married to a corporate businesswoman, we have struggled every single year to make it work. And every year at New Year's, we clink the glasses and say, hey, let's hope it lasts one more year. We have lived now, so that's 19 years, living just one job relocation away from not making it work, right? And so what you see in net domestic migration numbers is that people are voting with their feet. And what it means is that the group that is most impacted by this is, which is that from about median income down, is the group that is perhaps least empowered to actually have a voice and do something about it.
So if we can agree that education and business alignment is one of the critical drivers in quality growth in this community, I'm going to get a Bill Gates' bank account, and I'm going to put Drew and Penny in a room and say, you guys design for us the future of education and business cooperation.
Got this.
Don't come out.
Bring it.
Somebody work at Gates, will you? Don't come out until you got it done. What does it look like when you guys are done? And you're telling her how to run the school. She's telling you how to go, Penny.
I can say there's definitely an intersection between the two. We're completely interdependent upon each other. I know for us that, so let me just say this piece, and I don't know how many people know this, but we have a vision in our district that every student is prepared for a powerful future, which we define as being gainfully employed doing what you love,
Okay.
right?
Say that again.
Being gainfully employed doing what you love, like I get to do every day.
What a
So,
concept.
in other words, careers of interest,
Okay.
where they can live a comfortable life, be gainfully employed, be able to care for themselves and their family. Okay?
Okay.
Not have to be homeless or unable to eat or feed your children or have clothing or whatever. So that's our goal for our students, and you'll remember what our demographics look like. And we have over 70% of our students who live in poverty every single day, but our goal is for them to make it. And we've put a lot of things in place for them to make it. So our incoming freshmen next year will have new graduation requirements, and they will be able to either meet the requirements for four-year graduation or four-year college, which are called the A through G requirements, or they will be able to complete a career-based, career technical education pathway,
Right.
one or the other.
How many
We
pathways do you have? How many pathways do
We
you
have 70 pathways, and every single pathway is aligned to a college industry certification at our local colleges, and or an associate's degree, and or an associate's to transfer degree. So where students can get any number of certificates, they can go for whatever they need for the career of their choice to prepare them for the jobs of the future. It's a bit of a moving target. For example, one of our greatest pathways in bioengineering, we had an amazing partnership with Amgen, and we still do. But of course, we know what's happening there. And so that's devastating to us because we have so many kids who are interested in job-embedded internships and experiences, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to hook kids up with not just the skills they need, but the experiences and the job connections they need and the businesses they need to be able to go on to that career that they love. They are the future workforce. I've got right now 17,000 future workers sitting there who will be, if I have anything to do with it, highly skilled and educated when they come out of our school district. So, and to that end, I have to tell you that our graduation rate has gone up, our college acceptance rate significantly up, and our A through G rate has doubled since I've been there as superintendent. And so we're going to continue working on that, but what worries me is, will the jobs that we're preparing them for be the same? Will they be there when they get out? I'm not really interested in high demand, low wage jobs for my kids. I want high demand, high wage jobs for the kids here in Oxnard Union High School District, because I'm not interested in education for the sake of education. Education is the foundation of a socioeconomic movement and revolution, right? Right. So it's not about just checking a box off for courses. It's like, can that course get you to that career where you're going to be happy and be able to support your family? That's our work.
Drew, I'm going to give you a chance at that, but you see what I mean about Oprah Winfrey and Joe Clark? You know, it's coming out. It's coming out. This district, by the way, pays for at least one college application and the SAT for every one of its students. So if you talk about these kids living in poverty, what's one of the first things to go? Well, college applications are expensive. The SAT goes, the school district pays for it. So there's no excuse. I love that about the district. Drew, I'm sorry, take off.
I think Penny's program's outstanding. I don't think that the school districts and the educational academia can handle it by themselves. They need business involvement.
We do.
Business partnership. A couple of interesting stats that I've looked at recently is, I think since 2017 in Ventura County, we've seen a decline of somewhere around 14% of our production manufacturing jobs in the county. We've seen 10% or so increase in service-related jobs in the county, and apparently we're creating more jobs than we actually need in the county, which is all sounds kind of interesting. But when you peel one layer back and you look at those manufacturing production jobs, they're paying $100,000 a year.
Okay.
We're losing those jobs. The new jobs we're creating are $20,000, $30,000 a year. So our kids are going to have to work 2 or 3 jobs if we don't get deliberate, figure out how we can work with the schools, work with the high schools and the middle schools and the universities to put programs together in a way that can evolve really rapidly. What we've done with some of the professors at Cal Lutheran and at Cal State is actually provide content, curriculum, guest lectures, things that actually are dealing with the relevancy of what the needs in the business are today. And they're changing constantly. I mean, the trade desks have been there almost 6 years now. And in the 6 years, I can tell you it's been just an amazing just transformation.
Is there a concrete example, Drew, you could give the audience of what was important in 2012? And
I can tell you that when I started with the company, I was working with Dave Pickle, or I work with Dave Pickle still, but I asked him, I said, what's the end game for the trade desk?
Yeah.
He said, we were focused on driving digital advertising, primarily around what you call display ads back then. And he said, we're successful in that space. It's a relatively small space when you look at the opportunity. And we're only about 2% done. And the big game's going to be when television happens. And he says, that'll be about 10 years. And here we are, less than 5 years since that conversation, and it didn't take 10 years. We're seeing it. How many saw the Disney Plus rollout this week? Right. That's a clear example of what he was talking about. That's moving right into our wheelhouse. Okay. But that just tells you that we were focused on digital advertising on a display-based static ads back then, and now we're talking about advertising on television that's sitting in your living room. Wow. You could be watching a show and you could be watching the same show, but you'll be seeing different ads based upon what your needs are. Wow. So that's just one example. The amount of data that we're touching and the regulatory changes that we're seeing on a global basis, the international opportunities we're seeing in countries like China and India, those are really changing some of the needs that we have as a business as well from a skill set and a preparedness perspective. So we're looking to lean in. I think what I'd like to do is challenge my fellow business leaders in the community to lean in and find opportunities to support the schools, to get actively engaged, not passively engaged. Get in there and really help drive the programs that we're looking to see here.
I just think it's remarkable that Trade Desk has shifted your position into this education.
I'm passionate about it. I asked for it 3 years ago. They said, finish what you're doing right now. It'll take you probably 3 years, but when it happens, you can do it. So.
Okay. I don't want to run out of time. Nick has something very special I want to share with this audience. So one of the great things about prepping for a meeting like this is that you don't have this 30-minute clock you're trying to worry about. You can sit at lunch long after the waiters or waitresses have asked you, are you done yet? And keep talking. And that's what we did. And Nick made this statement during one of these conversations. You said that our fear of turning into the San Fernando Valley, which I know Drew Powers is here. Drew, where are you? Wave your hand. Okay. Drew, how does every conversation start with a citizen when you approve 10 more apartment buildings, right? Or 10 more apartments. What do they say? Yeah, we don't want to become the next San Fernando Valley, right? But you said the fear of turning into the San Fernando Valley actually puts us at risk of becoming the next San Fernando Valley. Wow. And now why and how would you explain that?
I don't even remember saying it.
You're so brilliant. These things just roll off your tongue.
And I don't remember half of what I say anyways in these contexts.
Welcome to the club.
But there's deep truth to that. The fear of becoming what we fear is what gets in our way of becoming what we should be and want to be.
Okay.
And that's because it prevents us from connecting with each other, from cross-pollinating, and from understanding what it is we really need and what it is we really want. And And I am feeling that we are on the cusp of some significant change. Now, I'm an optimist at heart, so I never trust that feeling. But we all agree this is an amazing place. It's a beautiful place. We all seem to understand that there is a tremendous lack of housing and other types of development. Housing is really one of the cruxes of our challenge. And so how do we accommodate that housing? And I was sitting here realizing that from some of the conversation that we need everything from tiny houses to penthouses. Mm-hmm. Everything across that spectrum, from tiny houses to penthouses. How do we do that? Where do we build them? Because I hear a lot of people in the area say, well, Ventura's built out. There's nowhere to build. Where are we going to build? Ha. That's where it gets fun, from my view. So, no political boundaries. We're a collection of communities, and these nodes actually represent sort of concentrations of part of those communities and areas where something a little more specific could happen. We also are a part of a much larger region that we don't talk about very much, and that is the connection between us and the Valley and Los Angeles, and the kind of relationships that can be developed in that regard through appropriate transit systems. And so how do we connect these dots together, locally and otherwise?
The Phoenix household has a relationship. We both drive across the county line to go to work each day.
That's right. That's right. And we're miserable doing it. Yeah. So let's just take a look at one piece, one area of Ventura that I have been looking at and many of you are familiar with, and we've been watching it wither for about 30 years. Johnson Drive. Johnson Drive is a wide street designed to get cars from one place to another place, not to bring them to Johnson Drive. And so we've watched all of the development in that area struggle and suffer. And it's been painful to see that. So I'm suggesting that there's a tremendous opportunity for change in that area. And I'm suggesting that we think of the Johnson Drive area as an annex or a component of what's happening at River Park. Instead of seeing the political boundary as this wall, or seeing ourselves in competition with, how do we connect these things? And believe it or not, there's actually a pedestrian bicycle connection across that bridge between those two areas that somebody with a brain thought about
I think it's Darren
20
Kettle.
years
I think
ago.
we should give Darren
It
Kettle.
could very well be Darren, and Darren is here. So this is what's called a figure ground study of the Johnson Drive area. And the black is the buildings, and the white is the land that isn't built on. And a lot of it has little hatch marks, and those represent parking spaces. And by the way, I'd like everybody here to start thinking, every time you pass a parking lot, oh, land banking. What's going to happen there?
Okay.
This is a figure ground study of what could happen if we were to apply thoughtful urbanism and thoughtful planning to the area, and the difference between the yield and the use of land. And notice I'm calling this, parking-driven planning versus land-wise planning. So this is how Johnson Drive could be transformed into a tremendous asset to the region, a neighborhood, a community of diverse spectrum of housing, of business, of commercial activity, and with a nexus to River Park. And by the way, there's a Metrolink station right there.
Right there. Yep.
So a lot of my slides are not coming through here, but this is the sort of visualization of what that could be. I have 3 slides that showed the area incrementally changing, but we'll just run with it here. There's no reason why Johnson Drive can't become something akin to this. The Pacific View Mall. Okay. Folks, things are changing. Things are changing faster than, it's kind of like if we talked about the idea that we would, 15, 20 years ago, if we talked about the idea that we would carry around a little mini screen in our pockets where we could watch the news and we could see movies and we could, it was hard to imagine. We're at that kind of a sea change in our day-to-day lives and living. And a lot of the maybe older folks are not so ready for it. I think a lot of the younger ones are they're not even buying as many cars.
Yes.
So this is the Pacific View Mall. And you probably heard the news that Sears is closing. Another coffin, nail in the coffin. This is 100 acres of land in the middle of Ventura, in the middle of our city, 100 acres. Instead of waiting around to watch it die, let's have the conversation. What do we want it to become? This is Vauban, a suburban community in Freiburg, Germany. It was actually a transformative conversion of an old military base into what has become the model sustainable community in the world. People go visit this place from all over to try to understand how to build sustainably. It is 70% car-free. It is linked to the jobs base and to Freiburg by a wonderful transit system. It has amazing open space, bike paths. Virtually every building built is designed to be energy efficient, sustainable, and in some cases, net zero. This is Freiburg, this is Vauban on the Pacific View Mall. It fits. 100 acres, 5,000 people. And I share this not, because I simply want people to start asking, what if? Where are we going? What's next?
I love that. Isn't that great? So when we're done, I'm going to get Penny and Drew and Gates's bank account, and then we're going to make Nick czar of Ventura County, and we're going to fix all this. We are about at the end, so give me a sentence that gives these people reason to be optimistic. What could we do? Matthew, I'm going to start with you.
Actually, I want to use my time to reinforce a point he made because I
Okay.
think it can't be made enough. Ventura County is changing. So you're going to hear this in my presentation momentarily. Ventura County is changing. The question is whether or not we're going to stay in the driver's seat. We're a community that took a very active role as the driver, and so we're the perfect community to drive Ventura County's changes to what we want in the future.
I love it. Drew, give me a reason to be optimistic.
The fact that we have 260 people here today that are interested in thinking about this is very encouraging. I'm with you. I'm an optimist. The change is going to happen. Do we want to let it happen to us, or do we want to derive where that's going to be? What's our future for our children going to look like? We have an opportunity to do that. We just need to align very closely with education, government, and business, and get very serious and deliberate about what we want that future to look like.
Penny?
My reason for optimism is my kids. I see the future every single day. Post-millennials, our kids we have in our classrooms, are savvy, they're smart, they understand economy, they don't want to spend a lot of money, they don't want a lot of loans, they don't buy cars because they don't think it's cost efficient. They're okay living at home with mom forever. But they are environmentally conscious. They're forward thinking. They're going to change the world, and I'm hoping that we will all be on board to help them get there and to partner and to have a place for them to go to change the world. That's what we need. We need to welcome them with open arms. They are incredible.
Awesome.
Can I comment on Penny's
Sure,
comment?
go ahead. Take a second.
Of the 200 people we have at the trade desk, I'm going to say 50% of those are almost straight out of school.
Okay.
And the one thing Ventura County produces is a really gritty, get-it-done attitude in our youth. So underscoring what you're saying, we've got the potential, and they want it.
Okay, I love it.
Yes, thank you.
Nick, want to give us a coda?
I'm totally heartened by the room full of people here. We don't have to watch it happen and wonder, what's going to happen. We can make this happen with intention. It takes a village.
Yeah.
And Ventura County is a village, guys. It really is. So
I'll give you mine, and it's a project Matthew and I have been working on the last couple of years. When Thousand Oaks was going through a rezoning of its general plan to create more housing opportunities, the city manager and others asked us, could you bring out some people to support this? And it was not hard for us to bring out 25 people, that's all. Went to a council meeting that night, and there were 12 people I'll politely call NIMBYs who said, you're going to turn us into the next San Fernando Valley if you add these housing units to our bank. And we came out with 25 of our closest friends and the council voted in favor of adding this housing to their housing bank, and talked about the overwhelming support in the community for this. So to the points we're hearing today, we do have control of this, and it doesn't take that much to convince elected leaders that we are a very powerful group. If this 260 people came out to support Vauban, is that it?
Vauban, yeah.
Vauban, the Pacific View Mall, what
Yeah.
kind of effect might that have at the city of Ventura? So, guys, I want to thank all of you. Please join me in thanking all these folks for coming out.